Shalom, I'm Philip Nadel, and it's my pleasure this week to bring you this week's Moment of Torah from one of my favorite places to visit in all of Israel. I'm in the Negev. I'm in the southern part of the country, and I'm not far from a kibbutz called Sde Boker. Sde Boker has quite a prominent place in our people's history. It's a place actually that people come to visit very often if they come to visit this part of Israel. One of the reasons being is that Sde Boker was the former home of David Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of the state of Israel. One of his greatest claims to fame is that he had that honor on May 14th of 1948, 64 years ago. In fact, on the secular calendar, 64 years ago this coming week, he had that honor in Tel Aviv of standing up and proclaiming a newly independent state of Israel. Interestingly, whether you know this or not, May 14th of 1948 was a Friday, and the declaration of the state took place on Erev Shabbat, Friday afternoon. That Shabbat in 1948, the parasha that we read from the Torah, was a parasha called Parashat Emor, the same portion that we in fact will read this week in the Beit Knesset as well. Now, we find ourselves with this week's parasha in the middle of a whole cycle of holidays that we've been celebrating. Some of those holidays are modern creations, holidays like Yom HaShoah, or Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, holidays that were created after the creation of the state of Israel. But other holidays that you know that we're celebrating now as well, including Pesach, are biblically commanded. Pesach, right now, after having just celebrated Passover, we're in this in-between stage between Passover and Shavuot. In fact, we're in this place called the period of the counting of the Omer, where we're counting down the days until we get to the holiday of Shavuot. This week's Torah portion includes in it a listing of all of those biblically commanded holidays. As I said, we're in this incredible, wonderful period right now of marking the days between Passover and Shavuot. And Shavuot, and the days that we count in getting there, really mark this rising anticipation of coming to a point of great fulfillment for our people. We leave slavery in Egypt, we leave there, we march out, we cross the Red Sea miraculously, we march into the desert, and eventually we end up at the foot of Mount Sinai. And on Shavuot, we celebrate that occasion of being at Mount Sinai, in which God gives us the Torah. So in some ways, getting the Torah, as we know, is this incredibly momentous, powerful, maybe culminating experience. But the fact is, it doesn't end with Sinai. The experience at Mount Sinai of getting the Torah is really just the beginning. And so as I said, that story continues. We've wandered through the desert for 40 years, and finally, God brings us into the land of Israel, where we put it all together. We celebrate who we are as a people, we take the commandments of the Torah, we celebrate our festivals, and as I said, those festivals are deeply connected to this land. Now that brings us right back to where I'm sitting now. It brings us back to the Negev. It brings us back to the person of David Ben Gurion. One more thing about this place where I'm sitting right now, here in the Negev desert on this beautiful morning. I'm down here today because I've come down with a group of my students that I teach at the Alexander Mas High School in Israel. My students and I regularly take a trip down into the Negev, and one of our stops is at the home of David Ben Gurion at Sde Boker. And it's there that we have a conversation. We really have a dialogue about me, and I ask them these questions about, what does Israel mean to you? What place has Israel found within your Jewish identity? And I think those are the questions that perhaps, because of this week's Torah portion, which is connected through this cycle of the holidays that we're in right now as it comes to the land, the questions I want to ask you about you and your relationship to this place, your relationship to Israel. And so this week, I want you to consider perhaps again what Israel means to you, how you might at some point find your way here for the first time, find your way here again for a visit that's taken place on multiple occasions. In any case, let me at least wish you a wonderful Shabbat Shalom, and Shabbat Shalom.